So in the last video, I talked about AI and I'm on the camp of embracing AI, that we as, human beings, should try to find a way to use it as a tool in our life, to become more productive, to help with us with our creativity, and especially for performing arts people, that we should learn how to use AI to create more efficiently. It isn't, like there's a big difference between that versus, going to ChatGPT and go like, please churn me up a script. I have this idea. Now write me a whole entire script and then, call it a day and then there it is and release it to the whole world. Like that isn't working with AI to me, because that most of the time those things, we've all probably heard like, oh yeah, AI suck at writing scripts, AI suck at those things. Well, that's because you're using it wrong. And I've mentioned it previously in the last video, is that AI can't really make judgments. We as human beings have to make those judgments because in the end, we're the consumers. We're the one who's going to be watching these shows or doing, using these products that we use AI to create. So we have to be the final judgment and to make those judgment calls. And when we say judgment, that means you actually have to push back on with AI. So here's some tricks. So today I'm gonna, in this video, I'm gonna tell you some of my tricks of how I communicate with AI. And one of the first thing that I love to do is, if you're starting a brand new project, especially something that you really don't know how to do, recently I started doing that with some new products that I'm launching and new things that I'm doing and or whatever I'm experimenting, yeah, and I'm not, versed at it completely. Like I understand the basics of it, but I may not know all the details of it. So first thing I would do is ask AI to, well, ask me a series of questions. I want to do this. I want to make this. Ask me a bunch of questions that will help you create a much better product, at least the first version of that product or a script or an idea or product, concept or a pitch deck or whatever it is that you're creating. I'll ask AI to ask me a bunch of questions and then it'll give me some roadmaps of, and usually it'll follow up with like, it'll give me like maybe 10, 20 questions to ask. And then they'll ask me another series of 20 questions. And then it'll spit out maybe a first version of it, going from part to part to part. But here's the trick. When they give you that first version of it, you actually have to go and read it in details and push back at every little thing. You have to do some critical thinking here. You have to be creative about it. You have to really say like, hey, is this really good? I don't really want this. What about this? How about that? And really push back at your AI. So you can't just, type in a prompt and then have AI generate an entire script and then call it a day. Like that isn't how it works. You really have to engage with it. You have to go in depth. So even after it gives you a first draft of the script, you got to push back. You got to go, section by section, little by line, every single thing that it talks about. You kind of have to say, like, do I like this? Do I want this? I don't like this. What about this? I think this is too generic. You got to go through it and work with the AI until it comes up with something that you are personally happy with. To me, it's almost like if you're doing a script with AI, treat it like a writer's room. The AI is your entire writer's room, but you're not gonna, just if you're the showrunner of a show, your writer submits a script to you. You're not gonna say, all right, all good, let's just shoot it. No way. You'd be pushing back onto that writer left and right. You're going to be like, I'm not sure about this. What about those ideas? Let's explore this aspect of it. It's not necessarily that AI is right or wrong. It's not about a judgment. It's not about it being bad. It is just so that you really have a product that is yours, that you genuinely came up with and created. Now, obviously, if you've answered all those questions, that first draft is already very much you, because AI would have taken a lot of what you said and then incorporated. But that's just your first draft. You got to go through this like 20, 30 iterations of it with AI over and over. But you also need to save each one of those because AI has a tendency to not be able to, it cannot. Actually, I've had this conversation with AI previously with ChatGPT, is that because the way it's designed, it cannot actually help you regurgitate an exact thing that they did previously. It is designed to not do that. So anytime you ask it a question, even if you're asking it to, can you give me word for word a previous script? It literally cannot, because what it does is it reads it and then process it and then gives you a new take. The reason why I asked this is because I was developing some ideas with it, an app that I was, developing. In fact, I got a first draft. It was so good. It literally helped me, guided me through and created a working prototype of an app. And I do not code. I didn't know how to do any of that, but I worked with ChatGPT and it got me through the entire process. I mean, I used some third-party programs to create the app, but it guided me through it all the way through until I actually had a working prototype. And it was a fun experiment for me. I learned so much from it. But during that process, I asked ChatGPT, if I have an idea, I'm working with you, what's to prevent somebody else from getting this exact same thing? What if another person asks you the exact same question with the same thing, like literally word for word, exactly what I had with you? Would you give them the exact same ideas and come up with the same results? And it said no, because it formulates a completely unique write-up answer every time you ask it a question. So even if you ask it once or twice, a third time the exact same question, it cannot literally give you word for word what it said previously, because it formulates a new idea. It recalibrates and reanalyzes everything to give you a new answer. So it might be similar, but it won't be exact. So that's why it has trouble. Sometimes it feels like ChatGPT forgot, and sometimes I have to do that with iterations of these scripts that I'm developing, or these projects and products that I'm creating. That you actually, it's frustrating, because it's like, I was like, that's not what we talked about. We didn't have this in there. I didn't have this line in there. You added this line. You changed this stuff in here, and I'll be like, okay, you know what? It's AI. There is still limitations to what it can and cannot do. And of course, I'm sure it will change, and it has already changed the last year since I've started using it. I mean, the incredible things that it can do. I started using AI a few years ago, developing some of the scripts that we use for the students, and also with the scenes that we do, some of the backgrounds that we do. And it's come a long way what it can do over the last 3 years. But there's still a long way to go. Well, maybe not that long, because, it is mainstream now. It is everywhere, in places that you don't even realize they are. Recently I worked on a commercial where I have to direct an AI voice actor. That was painful for me, because I was doing it in Cantonese, and it was just really annoying. It took forever, but it was done, and it's only going to happen more often in the future. So AI is not going anywhere with these, large corporations all invested heavily in it. So we as individual artists, we need to take advantage of this. And that's the beauty of it, is that AI puts so much power in our hands. It's in your hands now. It's not in some gatekeeper's hands. You have the ability to make an entire world with just AI. I've seen so much wonderful things that can be done. So you just have to know how to use it, and you have to use it properly. And you can't just type in a prompt and call it a day. You have to keep talking to it. You have to talk to it over and over. And you also have to understand how to talk to it. I know there's a lot of TikToks out there and lots of Instagram reels that tells you, this is the prompt you can use for AI, and this is the prompt. Like, they don't really work like that. You have to have extensive conversations with it, because over time, the AI that you work with, it starts to get to know you, starts to get to know your voice, because it's talked to you so much, and it starts incorporating those things, your history. Even though it's still kind of sparse and sporadic and it's not always consistent, but it starts to get to know you. And this newest project that I just recently created, I just wrote a brand new show, and I created a whole show Bible and everything. And this process was completely different than the process I did like a few years ago when I started it and developed some stuff, because it automatically incorporated a lot of the previous conversations I had, philosophical conversations that I had with ChatGPT, and all of these other things that I've had, including the app development that I had, like all of that information and my school projects and all these other projects that I've done. It brought all of those things into the newest project that I did, because it learned from all the previous conversations that I had. So it's like anyone else, any person that you work with, if it's a new team member, you got to kind of talk to them a little bit more, so that they understand. If you bring a new team member onto your team in a project, you need to do that, right? You need to work with them a little bit so that they understand your voice. Even if they're talented, you still need to do that. So there's no difference with AI. Otherwise, that's why you get all these generic looking stuff, generic sounding things from AI. It's because it never got a chance to understand your voice. But once it does, then you can start creating truly unique things that is also true to you. Now, of course, it's not perfect, and you really do have to go back in and make some, extensive work to get it into that world-class level. Until you get to that level, work with it, play around with it, create new projects every day with it, talk to it a lot more. Talk to it every day about anything, everything. Let it get to know you. Now, of course, if you're worried about taking your information and all that stuff, remember turn off, there is a function where you can turn off in ChatGPT so it doesn't share your information to the mainframe and all that stuff, If you do that, then it's pretty safe that, these things are, contained within your conversation. It won't sell these information back out. AI is here to stay. So I highly encourage you to do that, work with it. Yeah. So that's my number one tip on how you can really make AI work for you. There's a lot more advanced stuff that you can do, and I will be happy to share more advanced stuff in the future with you on what you could possibly do with AI. That could be part of my, you know what? I'm going to make that a part of my series here. Yeah, right now, see, I just came up with that. I'm going to make that as an ongoing thing to come up with more AI tips, how to use AI in your performing arts in a career. But yeah, until then, talk to it first. Just start by having philosophical, worldly conversations with your AI and let it get to know you. All right. Well, if you like what you heard here today, please like and subscribe, all the mumbo jumbo. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. And if you'd like to, learn more, about what I do or, sign up for classes at PopRock, please feel free to contact us at poprockacademy.com. And yeah, until then, I'll see you next time.